The Laken Riley Act, a bill requiring the feds to detain illegals who commit theft-related crimes, passed the House, which is great. But question, why in this Sam Hill did 159 Democrats vote against it? So before we get started on the regularly planned show today, I do want to send my thoughts and my prayers to everybody in Southern California. I spent a brief but really important time of my life in Southern California, and I'm absolutely heartbroken to see all the people losing their homes, losing their pets, and fleeing for their very lives. So I just want you to know that everybody here in Nashville, here at Outkick, here at Tomi Lahren is Fearless, is thinking about you and praying for you, and we're all thinking about you through this really difficult time. So I just wanted you to know that there in California. Obviously, I criticize California and California politics a lot, but now is not the time for that. Now is the time really just to pray for all y'all dealing with a really horrific situation. So I want you to know we're thinking about you. All right, now on to this. The Republican-controlled House is off to a good start with the passage of the Laken Riley Act, a bill that would require the detention of illegals who commit theft and allow states to sue the federal government on behalf of their citizens for not enforcing border laws, especially those regarding parole. What a novel concept. Why in the hell do we need a new law to achieve this, though? You know, maybe I'm a little naive and simple, but I thought all illegals in the U.S. were already subject to detention for, being here illegally. Regardless, I'm happy it passed the House 264 to 159. Yeah, 159 Democrats voted against it. Bravo to the electorally vulnerable Democrats, all 48 of them who voted for this, and this time, not out of the goodness of their hearts, but probably to save their asses for the next election. In case it's not clear, the reason this is named after Laken Riley, the nursing student killed by an illegal, is because the illegal convicted in her murder had previously been arrested for other crimes but not held by ICE, thus allowing him the leeway to fly to Georgia on your dime and then bash a young girl's head in with a rock. 159 Democrats don't seem too rattled by that, which tells you everything you need to know. Joining me now to comment on that and more is Hannah Cox, Based Politics co-founder. All right, Hannah, I want to start with this. The Laken Riley Act, obviously a very important thing for the House to pass. Hopefully the Senate will see the light and also give this one a go. And then maybe President Biden in his waning weeks will also sign this into law. We're hopeful, although I'm not going to hold my breath. What do you think it says about the 159 Democrats who thought, you know what, illegals commit crimes in the U.S.? No, we're not going to have mandatory detention for those folks.
Well, I think it says they haven't learned their lessons. We've seen overwhelmingly over the past election cycle that many legal immigrants are not in favor of what they're doing. So I think they've had a strategy for some time, thinking that if they just had a no-holds-barred approach to immigration, that would somehow incur favor for them with these incoming Americans. But that has not proven to be the case. And that makes sense because people who are doing things the right way, who are jumping through the enormous hoops and costs that we have for coming here legally, they don't want people to get a shortcut. They don't think people should get a workaround. They don't think that people should get to cut them in line. And they certainly don't think that people should get to come here illegally and then commit criminal acts, which make all of them look bad, which also pose a threat to them and their communities. And so they've had enough of this as well. So I really don't know what the strategy here is with Democrats. I'm not sure any of them do either, but they certainly haven't recalculated, it seems.
No, I really just don't know how you explain that to your constituents. And I saw a couple of these morons on X yesterday try. It was like, oh, this is targeting the undocumented newcomer community. Okay, let me just take a moment here. If you're saying that a bill that requires ICE to detain people that are convicted of theft-related crimes is targeting a community, you're exactly right. It's targeting a community of people who, first of all, should not be here and committed crimes. That's like saying, you know what, the people that are in jail or in prison, you're targeting them for their wrongful doings and their wrongful acts that they committed to the decent citizens of America. Yeah, we are targeting them. They put a target on their back for several reasons, not only coming here illegally, but then committing war crimes once they were here. The rationale is just not there. I don't know how they do it, and I don't know the constituents that they're serving that they think they are best serving by voting against a law that would protect communities. But again, they're not getting it. They're not awake. They're not paying attention, and I hope that they will suffer electorally for it. I'm not sure they will. But when we look at, what this next Congress is going to do, we look at the Republicans in the House that have a slim majority. How confident are you that Donald Trump's agenda is actually going to be put into action?
Well, I think there's a pretty good shot. I think that there is a lot of optimism right now. We're going to see how this goes when he gets into office. I think a lot of this will come down to how focused he stays. And I think that's very important. He has a commission that he's been given by the voters. It's very clear what Americans want to see happen. I think fixing crime in our cities, fixing the issue with the border, fixing the issues around immigration, and fixing the issues with inflation are of paramount importance to the American people. And I think if he gets down to business on those issues, we could see some real traction. I think there's an appetite for laws like this. And I think even very pro-immigration Americans, which I count myself among, want to see something done about the lawlessness in our cities. We are tired of feeling threatened when we go into the cities that we're paying for. We're tired of not being able to use the services that our taxes are going towards. We're tired of seeing our infrastructure failing, and we're tired of seeing people who are not citizens have their interests put above the interests of people who have done the right things and who are paying into the system. So I really am hopeful that we could see some really good movement on that, but Republicans are going to have to keep their laser focused attention on those items and not get sidetracked by things that are of lesser importance, which I think could be difficult to do. Obviously, there's a lot of special interests. There's a lot of competing factions looking to get their agenda across the line. So I'm hopeful, but you can never be too hopeful in politics, I guess.
Yeah, well, and here's my concern as well. And you said that you would categorize yourself as somebody who is pro-immigration. I think most people are pro some form of legal immigration. Most of us have immigrant backgrounds, however far back that goes. Obviously, we are a nation of immigrants for the most part, unless you are, of course, a Native American or of Native American lineage. But I will say this, the discussion of the H-1B visas is a couple weeks old now, and I think it's died down. But I think it's an important discussion that Republicans are going to have amongst themselves in terms of what, the focus and the agenda is going into the second administration. Donald Trump has signaled that he supports H-1B visas, and, most people have, some love and support for those visas that allow skilled workers to come in and fill jobs that are, needing to be filled. But I would just say this as well. Yesterday, we saw that great press conference in Mar-a-Lago, which I had a lot of respect for, a lot of the things that he said, but talking right off the top about that investment for these data centers being built, which is great. They're going to bring in jobs. I'm just wondering how many of those jobs, though, are going to go to visa holders and not American citizens. Wondering if you share some of the same concerns. Not always easy to criticize our own side or our own president-elect, but I think we're going to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, well, I love that you bring this up, Tomi, because I thought that discourse was really interesting. I thought Vivek made some very interesting points in his Twitter post that really started the entire infighting. I think that Vivek and Elon and Trump are right. I think H-1B visas are largely a good thing and something that's necessary. But when we look to the future of this country, what's really vastly important is that we make sure that we have an educated population that is equipped for the kinds of jobs that we are going to have available to us. And I think that it is, without question, that is not happening right now. Our school system is failing. And this is one of the things I'm most excited about for the Trump administration. He has been so rabidly pro-school choice, which I think is one of the most important issues on the docket. Even in Tennessee, where you are right now, there's about to be a bill that could pass. And I think when you look at these very red Republican states, people have got to put the pressure on, because we've been trying to pass these bills in red states for some times, and Republicans keep going limp behind the scenes, not getting them across the finish lines. A lot of them are taking money from the teachers unions to do their bidding. Enough is enough. We have to give parents the ability to get their kids out of failing schools and to get them into schools where they can actually not only be educated versus indoctrinated, which is what they're often getting in the public school system, but actually be equipped for the kinds of jobs that we need to have filled, so that we don't have to look to import so many people in order to keep our economy going. So this is a multifold issue. I think Trump does have the answers when it comes to the large scale. And I think when you look at the agenda and how those pieces can fit together, there's a lot of really exciting things on the table. But again, Republicans have got to keep their coalition together and actually stay focused and do what's right at all levels of government for the next several months.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, in talking about American education, I just did a story the other day about New Jersey, who's decided a basic literacy test is no longer required to certify their teachers. Wow, glad I'm not in New Jersey. But we know the education system in large part is failing. COVID did a lot to damage it. The teachers' unions have been damaging it for many years now. And even states like mine are being impacted. Even states that you wouldn't think would be impacted are certainly being impacted. Florida did a great job in standing firm, especially in rooting out all of the LGBTQ nonsense that was thrust upon students, as well as CRT. A great move by their governor, of course, to stand strong in the face of all of that woke crap. Other states need to follow suit. I would also say, though, I think that we don't need to overcorrect, and this was my discussion on H-1B visas as well when this was a hot topic, was, yeah, we need people that are skilled, that come out knowing how to read, write, do math. Hopefully some folks go into engineering and computer sciences, all very important, but we don't need our students to be militant either in their education. We don't want to look like China. I don't want that for American students. I want American students to still be able to have extracurriculars and participate in sports and other social activities. I think that there can be an approach here that doesn't go so far the other way that we're creating, little academic soldiers. Not what I want to see. In going off of yesterday and the press conference, great to see a president who can, first of all, stand and speak coherent words. That's nice. That's refreshing. He said some things, though, that are really riling people up. And I love it when people get riled up by Donald Trump. Here is Donald Trump talking about Greenland, the Panama Canal, things that he thinks are on the table. Let's take a listen to that.
Your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. But we need Greenland for national security purposes.
Okay, people are freaking out. Oh my God, we're going to send our sons and daughters to fight in a war to take back the Panama Canal, Greenland, and Canada. First of all, I don't think it would be hard. Not saying I'm advocating for a military solution, but I don't think that there would be much bloodshed there. I don't think Canada is going to put up much of a fight. Again, I say that jokingly. But what do you think about this? Do you think that those regions should be on the table, or maybe just some strong negotiation that might get us in that direction?
Yeah, I think people are overreacting a little bit. I mean, Trump has always been more in favor of diplomacy versus interventionism. And that's one reason he's gained a lot of support. And that's one reason that I think libertarians like me are excited that he won over somebody like Biden, where we were certainly going to get more and more escalations in foreign areas. So I don't foresee that being his course of action. And I think there could be diplomatic negotiations that are available on the table. Certainly, I think there are some strategic reasons for why we should perhaps be interested in increasing our presence at the very least in these regions. I would be pretty hesitant to want to start adding citizens from places like Greenland or Canada, just given how very far left these populations are. They have very socialist operations that are currently in place. I don't know that that's the kind of voters we want to add. But if we're looking to merely increase our presence or to have, a stronger hold on these regions, then yeah, I think there's reasons it should be discussed. I will circle back to what I said earlier, though, which is, I guess, a question of prominence and where the focus should be. Is this of, paramount importance? This is the first thing he should be focusing coming into office. I don't think most of his voters would agree. It's not really something that I would have on my agenda. So I'm curious for what his reasons would be for this have moved up in the ranks to the degree that it has, and if it will stay there. I think that's another question. But I think that we should wait to see what happens, wait to see what's on the table. And certainly a lot of people have rushed to insist that this means that we're going to start coming in and violating international laws and seizing different territories. And I just don't think that's going to be the case. And if it is, then I would certainly speak out against it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I don't think it's going to happen. I think this is a negotiation technique. I think Donald Trump likes to make leaders of other nations feel small. And you know what? As someone who just loves America, I'm okay with that. If you make the rest of the world feel a little small in comparison to the U.S., I think go for it. I would also say this, for those folks out there that are really clutching their pearls over this, of course, Rep. Eric Swalwell, the known farter, he put out a tweet like, oh, we're going to take Canada by force, and he was crying over it and all these things. And I understand, don't want to take Canada by force either, okay. But I think it's interesting that some of these folks like Swalwell and others, are really just so distraught over the idea of American expansion, but they don't care at all that the rest of the world is expanding itself into America by way of an invasion at our borders. Like, that was okay. Bring in the third world, take care of the third world here on U.S. soil, but don't dare talk about maybe an economic alliance with Canada. So please, spare me. I want to move on to some more pop culture things. I don't know if you watched the Golden Globes. I certainly didn't. Couldn't care less about award shows just at all anyway. But of course, we normally consume our award shows by way of comedy on social media. And I thought that this one was particularly interesting. Dylan Mulvaney's hairdresser, who has been to the White House more times than the family members that have lost their loved ones to illegal immigrants, point that out. But here he, she, it, they is on the red carpet, of course, in the dress, and then distraught that people were criticizing him in a full beard and dress. I want to take a listen to this clip as well. I think you'll find it a comedic and cathartic release.
Finish the carpet, changing the hair for the after parties, watching the Globes. What a fun night. I'm not gonna lie, the extreme transphobic comments in the Glambot post and the Good Morning America post are kind of unsettling. Your friends and family feel way too comfortable being wildly transphobic on Instagram. You should probably talk to them about that. I'm gonna go back to watching the Globes now.
Listen, you have to help me figure this out. I don't care if you want to have a beard and wear a dress. That's a personal choice. But I don't think you should be astounded when people point out that you're taking a lot of time to look like a woman, but then you also have a full beard. That's just the realist in me speaking. What's your thoughts on this very interesting fashion choice?
Well, I would say, to use the language of the left, isn't he like cosplaying a trans person here? Because he's not trans, just to be clear. So he is trying to invoke trans imagery, and then he's trying to get upset about transphobia, all the while he is not trans. So I just think that's really, really interesting and like very thirsty victim chasing. But I mean, the whole reason that people would put on this kind of display is to get outrage going. They know it's going to make people upset. They know people are going to have things to say about it. And that is the sole reason they do it. It's the only way this guy can get his name in the news. He's been off his show on Netflix for years now. What else is he doing that's possibly going to get him any attention? And so this is just sort of a desperate action to drive people mad. I don't really think the vast majority of Americans who are very busy and just trying to feed their families and jump through all of these hoops they have to jump through just to do their jobs these days are concerned if a man puts on a dress. It doesn't actually impact anybody who cares. It's the fact that he is trying to overtly flaunt it, shove it in your face. He wants people to be outraged. And so I'm just very tired of this whole circus that these people continue to indulge in and people that buy into it when it's very clear that that reaction is exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, no, you're right. And listen, I'm not outraged. When people get outraged by this stuff, I like you find it comical. It's like, it doesn't impact me in the slightest. I think for me, it's just pointing out, as you mentioned, the attention seeking. I have had long conversations with Caitlyn Jenner about a lot of this. And what Caitlyn has told me is, usually trans people that are truly just trans people, they just want to be like everybody else. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to draw attention. They just want to live their lives. But now, in the last several years, we've started to make it like a circus where it's like, look at me, and they have to keep pushing the bounds farther and farther. And not really because they just want to be left alone. They want to have equality. They want to live a good life being who they want to be. More so, it's that they want undeserved attention, but then they also want to have a shield from any criticism, because if you do criticize somebody who is quite obviously a clown with a beard and a dress cosplaying trans, then all of a sudden you are transphobic. Again, you're exactly right. That's cultural appropriation. You are not trans. So there you go. I'm wondering, as we look forward to a Trump administration in terms of pop culture, do you think we're going to see any major shifts, any major changes? A lot of companies giving up DEI. That's a positive move, in my opinion. But do you think we're going to see anything noticeable in terms of the way Hollywood or the way entertainment reacts to a new administration?
I don't know about Hollywood, right? They're very deep in their bubbles. It's hard to penetrate that. They've got a lot of groupthink going on. But I would say we're already seeing in the broader culture a lot of change. I mean, we've seen already, as you mentioned, several companies who have backed off their DEI practices. We saw Zuckerberg yesterday coming out and saying that Facebook is changing its process to content moderation and is now going to uplift free speech and uphold free expression. I think that in general, just online, I'm somebody who spends my time on social media throughout the day and making content. And I would say the narrative has already shifted. I think people feel a lot more comfortable speaking out, a lot more comfortable pushing back, a lot more comfortable saying what they think. This sort of oppressive fear of being canceled, of losing your job, of losing your friends, of losing your platform if you make one mistake, you make one wrong step. It really seems to have lifted. I don't know if you feel that as somebody who's in the media as well, but I feel that myself, where I just feel like we have a sense of the majority has spoken. They're tired of this culture. We want to have open discourse. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume goodwill, but be able to engage and to have robust debates and discussions around things that are very important. And so I already noticed a difference, and I think that will hopefully continue. I think that's a very positive development. The 4 years we were living under, COVID Inc. and the Biden administration were amongst the most censorious that I can think of in history. And I think this time period is going to go down very darkly throughout history. I think Biden's going to go down as one of the worst presidents of all time. And I think we're just now really beginning to come out into the light and really start to look at what we were living with and fight back against it. So I really hope that spirit continues, and I think it will.
I think it will too. And I think a lot of conservatives, Trump supporters, just have no more F's to give. Don't really care if people don't like them. And I love that for the movement, because I don't think the left has ever cared. And it's time for the right to follow suit and to just be more bold. You can't cancel all of us. And I think that the left is going to be shocked to see how many there are on the right. They were shocked on November 5th. They're going to be shocked again. Thank you so much for taking the time with me today, Hannah. Please come back soon.
Me.
I really appreciate the conversation.
Thanks so much. So good to be here.
All right, folks. Zuck is making big promises to free speech again. And while I'm cautiously optimistic, I'm also very skeptical. And more so, I'm wondering if Google and YouTube will even pretend to give this whole First Amendment thing a try. It's time for final thoughts.
We're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms.
So here we go again. Meta boss Mark Zuckerberg, who has repeatedly denied censoring conservatives on his platforms, is now vowing to ease up on his censorship of conservatives and free thinkers on his platforms. It feels like we've been here before, because we have. And while I am optimistic that since Mark has taken up MMA and increased his testosterone, he has seen the light, and he means it this time. I'm obviously very skeptical, and for good reason. I want to share some more recent and egregious examples of my personal censorship experiences on Meta, starting with the most egregious, wherein Facebook worked hand in glove with the Biden administration to censor my content, specifically my personal choice to announce I would not be getting the jab. But there are many other examples of fishy crap done to me, and maybe even to you, by Meta platforms. Here's one from October 8th, 2024, wherein I shared a news report in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene that discussed migrants looting in flood-ravaged areas. I shared the post to my Instagram story. It was taken down for this reason. According to Instagram, my sharing of the story, quote, targeted a group of people based on who they are by portraying them as less than human. Wow, that's quite a stretch there, Instagram. But there's more, and here's a fun one. An Instagram policy violation for sharing photos of me and friends at a Nashville bar. That was deemed objectionable activity. Here is a better look at the objectionable photo. You be the judge. So yeah, I've got big beef with Facebook and Instagram and Meta as a whole, and while some of the censorship seems silly or harmless, it's all utter BS, and I have zero doubt I've had a giant target on my back since the day I started speaking out about conservative ideals. It only got more noticeable during COVID and the BLM Summer of Love. Good for Zuck for supposedly making changes, but I'll believe it when I see it. Also, it's beyond time for Google and YouTube to at least feign respect for free speech and expression. I won't hold my breath, but those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Catch full episodes of the show on Fox Nation whenever you want. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.